Hello, this is Mark Holmes, the editorial director of Via Satellite. We have another Via Satellite Thursday morning conversation, and this time I'm actually staying in the UK for once, and I have Hana Bird, an operations engineer at Surrey Satellite Technology. Hana, how are things, and how's life been under lockdown for you?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, no, all been good over here. Sort of getting used to it now. We're sort of in the swing of things now. How about you?
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, I work from home anyway, so perhaps not as big a change for me as I guess some others, but I'm probably used to a lot of travel. So the big change is not seeing a lot of people in the industry, whether, some of the big shows that we've had. But overall, it's amazing how quickly you get used to it as well, I have to say.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think now that we're used to it, it's like, quite like being at home.
To be fair, I haven't been in an office in 20 years, so I think it'd probably be worse for me to go back into an office full time, but it would be quite a challenge. So one of the things we've been asking people with these conversations, we've been talking about, how their work-life balance has changed, or what movies, TV they're watching, music. So tell us a bit about, any recommendations in terms of movies or dramas or anything else you're watching.
God, we've watched loads. What have we watched recently? We started watching White Lines. I think it's on Netflix. Yeah. And it's about Ibiza. And the thing is, it just made me think, oh, I really wish I was in Ibiza now. So I had to stop watching it. What else we did? We watched Money Heist as well, which was really good.
Yeah.
We're about halfway through that, and then we're just working our way through Family Guy, to be honest.
No, that's it's good. There's a lot of choice right now. We've just got the Disney Plus subscription for our family, so we're going through that. So I'm having to watch a few Disney movies with my daughters at the moment, which is a little bit different. What sort of music are you into? What sort of music do you like?
All sorts. I love. I'm a absolute obsessive over Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely love them. They're my ultimate feel good. Well, I'll put them on when I'm sort of need a bit of a uplift. So yeah, been listening to lots of them. My friends made an old school bangers working from home playlist as well. Lots of like old school.
What kinds of songs on that?
So old school Beyonce, Destiny's Child, what else? Like Usher is on there and stuff. Like really, it's been good.
So you go from Fleetwood Mac to Beyonce and Usher, and so it's quite a little bit of a contrast there, I think.
Yeah.
And what do you sort of like to do outside? I mean, aside from when you're working on big satellite projects at Surrey, what sort of things do you like to do outside of satellite?
All sorts. We do all sorts. We've done a lot. Well, not so much now because we've recently moved, but we used to do. There's a thing in the UK. I don't know if it's sort of worldwide, but there's a thing in the UK called Borrow My Doggy, which is where you basically go and walk people's dogs and look after people's dogs. So we've done a lot of that in the past sort of year. So yeah, that sort of stuff. I love clothes and shoes and stuff. So I'm constantly looking at all these sort of like fashion websites and blogs and stuff like that. So I spend most of my time outside of work sort of going through that and looking at all the runways and the trends and stuff like that. So yeah, that's what I love. That and dogs, basically.
So I said I have a daughter, which is ironically her birthday's coming up soon. So can you give me one or two tips, trends in terms of sort of girls' fashion? Those are things I maybe should be looking at.
I think, to be honest, I think you've just got to go with whatever you feel comfortable in. Don't bother, trying to go after something that you really don't feel comfortable in, because then I think people can tell when you're like 100% comfortable. You look much better, even if you're wearing a bin bag. As long as you sort of like wear it with absolute confidence, then you're good to go, really.
Yeah, it's good. Let's talk a little bit about the satellite industry. I mean, I came into the industry 20 years ago, and one of the big issues was attracting young people, like yourself to the industry. So tell us a little bit about your background, how you were sort of attracted to work in the industry in the first place.
Well, when I was at school, we were given the option to do science or triple science. I don't know if that's still a thing, but it was called triple science, where you could take separate lessons in like physics, chemistry, and biology.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to do that, and I really loved physics. And it was just at that point when like Brian Cox was becoming quite a big thing. He'd got loads of documentaries, and I think he just released a series as well on the BBC. And it was that sort of thing that got me drawn into it, like my dad basically watching those documentaries, and then I got interested in them. And then because we were learning about the same sort of stuff in school, I sort of got more and more interested in it, but never really as a career, never really pursued it at all. But then I did physics at A level as well, despite my teacher telling me that I couldn't do it, but I did it anyway. So yeah, I did physics at A level, and I chose the astrophysics module.
Yeah.
And that sort of was, I really enjoyed that as well. And I think, I can't remember at what point, I think it might have been in between my GCSEs and my A level. So maybe when I was about 15, I did a couple of weeks work experience at the University of Surrey in the physics department as well, doing like bits of research and stuff like that. And I loved that as well. So that was kind of what drew me towards it, I think. And then watching Dara O'Brien's The Sky at Night as well. There was a segment on that where they went and looked at what was then Astrium down in Portsmouth, and they were making satellites, and I just thought, yeah, that's what I want to do. So yeah, that's sort of how I got into it, and then I just pursued it after that, really.
I mean, do you think the industry could do, it sounds like, by doing that work experience, it was a real catalyst for you to sort of move forward into the industry. But overall, do you feel that the industry, there would be a lot more people interested in working in the space industry if the messaging to young people was better? How can the industry improve that, do you think?
I think, yeah, definitely. I think it's getting better for sure. But I do think there's a bit of a lack of, I was actually sort of talking about it the other day in terms of like getting younger people, like much younger, like primary school age kids sort of involved, and make it more relatable. I think like making like the space industry a bit more relatable, because I think when you're little, when you think about the space industry, all you think about is like, oh, you can be an astronaut and that's it. There's not really any there's not much exposure to all the different sort of routes that you could take, all the different kind of career paths you could take to get into the space industry, because obviously it's not just about being an astronaut, but also it's not just about being an engineer. There's all sorts of things that you could do, like finance and space policy and space law and all that kind of stuff. There's loads of different avenues that you could take, and I think it would be really good if there could be more emphasis on that in a younger sort of level, because had I not watched these documentaries on the BBC, I would never have really cared about it. Yeah. I don't think my school life really gave me any insight into the actual space industry. I just knew that I liked physics. That was it.
That sounds, it sounds slightly worrying in a way, because as you said, there's a number of potential jobs within the space industry, and we all naturally get fixated about astronauts and that side of it. But it feels like with the industry still, there's a lot more that can be done, and maybe there's a lot of other Hana birds out there that the industry is missing, people potentially who would be interested in the industry, but maybe didn't get the one or two opportunities that you got to then pursue it.
I think it's definitely getting better. I definitely think what we do at SSTL, we've got a really good outreach program, and a whole load of volunteers that work towards our outreach, and we sort of go and speak at schools and go to careers fairs, and we go to like the Farnborough Air Show and stuff like that. Just getting our name out there, and just you know, having that sort of exposure to the general public as well, I think is really important at school. You know, to be able to show that these are real people, you know, that are, you know, they're doing that as their job. I hope that it is getting better. I mean, it was a while ago that I was at school, but yeah, I hope that it is getting better. But I do think that we can keep going, keep pushing, you know, things like careers advice as well. That would be, I remember when I had my sort of careers advice, it was not really that broad. Whereas I think if you could explain to kids that actually you don't need to make that final decision when you're like 14, 15, choosing your A levels or choosing your degree, what you want to do, you know, there is a chance that in a few years' time you might change what you want to do, and then you decide that the space industry is what you want to do. Do you know what I mean? Sort of allowing like that diversity and not closing doors and things like that.
What do you see as the best thing? You've been in the space industry, I guess, a few years now. What's been the best thing for you about working in the industry?
I think for me, I particularly like, maybe this is company specific, but in my company at SSTL, it's a very sort of open environment, and you can quite easily get exposure to lots of different sections, and speak to lots of different people that you wouldn't maybe necessarily get to speak to in a big corporation. That's what that's why I've sort of stayed where I am, really, because I know that I could learn lots of different skills, and you know, further my career and further my sort of rounded knowledge of the industry by staying in the company. I could go and speak to different engineers and different people in different departments, and I think that's something that maybe is not unique to SSTL in general, but definitely is a big sort of selling point for me.
And if you could look back on one project that you were really proud to be a part of, and you thought, well, that was an amazing achievement, what we did as a team, which one would you pick out?
There was a mission a couple of years ago called Carbonite 2, and it took the first HD video from space on a off-the-shelf camera, and that was incredible. And we managed to capture a video of a plane taking off in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Which was amazing.
That is amazing. I mean, some of the technology is amazing. What do you see as like the future for the industry over the next sort of few years? I mean, I always joke that at the start of the year, we always talk about an industry in transition. And I always feel like that's one of the phrases we use a lot when sort of describing this industry. What sort of, when you look out, say, over this decade, and you know, whether it's Leo constellations, more human space travel, where do you think we might be towards the end of the decade? How do you see the industry evolving?
I think we're definitely, bizarrely, sort of going back to our roots, I think, in this decade, in terms of like going back to the moon, and things that obviously we did, you know, a few decades ago, when all the first space flight and space industry started to kick off. It was all about putting man on the moon and getting people in space and people on the moon. I think that we're actually sort of going back to that, but obviously with huge advancements in technology. So, you know, hopefully that will mean that we'll get better data and you know, more like a solid ground in terms of, you know, I definitely think that like the commercialization of space is something that in the next 10 years is really going to kick off, especially with the latest SpaceX launch. I mean, that was incredible. So, you know, if that works, and it has, you know, what's next, really. I think that's going to be the next big thing, is humans back in space, but on a commercial level.
How difficult has it been? I mean, we've all been adjusting our lives through sort of COVID and working from home. Some of us have been working home probably for sort of the first time. For someone that's been involved in obviously some big space projects, how difficult, how challenging has it been to work from home and still work on these projects?
Yeah, it's actually not been too bad. I mean, we've I guess in my team, we're particularly lucky because we're all working from home. But we're particularly lucky because we actually are on call quite often, and we can sort of remote into our systems that we use to speak to the spacecraft and all of our sort of control center. So in that sense, it's basically just like that, but all the time. So instead of it only being, once a month when you're on call, it's just every day. So really, we've already, luckily in our team, we already had all the infrastructure in place to allow that. So I think, yeah, we've been lucky. It's not been that much of a difficult transition. I think the only thing that we've really missed is the coffee machine, to be honest.
How many are in your team?
There's about 8 of us, I think. I think there's about 8 of us, yeah.
And what are you working on right now? I mean, can you share that?
I don't know if I can share it, but we're doing a few different projects, and then we've got projects that are ongoing that we do a managed service for as well. So we do mission operations for some other projects as well that are already launched, and then getting ready for future launches as well.
So, I mean, it's an exciting time, I guess, for you and for Surrey. How long have you been in the space industry now?
So I've only worked at SSTL. I started at SSTL straight after school, and I've been here 6 years, I think.
And have you seen a lot of change in that time? I mean,
the company's changed as it would. I mean, it's a changing thing, isn't it? But I think in terms of our attitude as a company, I think we remain kind of the same. We're quite daring, and we try to do things differently and have a bit of a to put our own spin on things, and I don't think that's changed. I think we're continuing to do that, and we're getting involved with other companies as well, sort of within the space industry in England as well. We've sort of got involved with some other companies in the space industry that are based here as well. So that's been quite interesting, getting to know other companies, getting to know how they work and things like that. But I think in terms of our overall sort of ethos, we remain pretty much the same. We're quite daring, but we get it done.
And just sort of finally, has working in the industry, you talked about doing the work experience a few years ago, watching these documentaries on the BBC, and that was again the catalyst really for giving you, I guess, the bug to develop a career in this industry. Has it been everything you expected it to be? Has it been different from the perception in any way? Just your sort of overall from where you were thinking, yeah, I would really like to work in space, to now having worked in space for 6 years. Are there any sort of changes or differences that you didn't expect? Any surprises from the industry?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think, when you look at it on the TV and stuff like that, and like watching the SpaceX launches and stuff like that, it looks very glamorous and very, you can see them all in NASA in the Mission Operations Center, and they're all there in their glory. I think it looks quite glamorous, and obviously when you're working in an office and you're going there every day, it's easy to become quite desensitized to it. And I think I definitely have done, on a few occasions. You sort of forget what that actually what you're involved in is amazing. But luckily we actually have because we do all of our building on site, so we've got a big assembly and integration and test hall, and it's massive, and it covers a couple of stories. and you can go up, and there's actually a window that looks into the assembly hall, so you can see all of the spacecraft sat there ready and, you know, being tested and stuff like that. And I think that's the thing that grounds you, you know, when you're starting to become a bit desensitized. Just taking yourself up there and looking in the window and thinking, actually, is really cool, is the thing that sort of brings you back down.
No, fantastic. I mean, Hannah, I mean, it's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure for me to talk to somebody different. And it's nice because when I came into the industry 20 years ago, this was a really big issue. And I know it's still a big issue now, but I know that things are improving, and it's great for the industry to attract bright young minds, and really for the next generation, because I think the next generation are the ones that are really going to benefit with space becoming more sort of mainstream, and these things that were very much the era of science fiction now becoming, you know, potentially more of a reality over the next 10 and 20 years. So I think it's great for Surrey and great for us, you know, to have someone like yourself, really to sort of underline, you know, what an amazing industry this is to work for. So I will end on wishing you and your team at Surrey all the best. I hope you sort of stay safe and stay healthy over this period. And I know I've covered Surrey satellite technology for many years. It's being a Brit myself, it's nice to always talk to some UK space companies. And yeah, wish you all the best. And thank you for taking time to talk with us today.
Brilliant. No, thank you for having me. Thank you.